done it. So you're going to hear very little from me today. It's all going to be about Kevin. So Kevin, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, everybody. You've probably seen me here or there a couple times. My name's Kevin Guillotte. I'm with nsclivetv.com. It's a little company that got cooked up on a 2 a.m. idea to try to get more exposure for a lot of comic book creators, a lot of comic book shops. And it's just got a chance to blossom over the last couple of years. And we've been fortunate to be able to get a chance to work with, guys like Rob, and just that's really helped broaden what we do. A lot of great ideas. And I just kind of want to go over today some of the ways that branding can help or hurt us, and some of the proper ways we need to do that. And I'll kind of start off with a short story of how I kind of got into this business. I've always wanted to be an artist ever since I was little. And my first grade teacher told me told my parents, and they told me later, that I was the first person she ever saw that put eyelashes on an ant. So I guess at an early age, attention to detail was something that was kind of wired into me from my parents, and then I just couldn't escape it. But I did take that and run with it. I did art all through high school. I actually started getting into freelance, and actually paid professional freelance when I was probably 16 years old. I was painting signs, outdoor signs for people, but if you want to back up even further to branding, I was drawing werewolves in the 4th grade and going to my library and Xeroxing them for $0.25 and selling them for 50 cents. So I guess I did see the possibilities at a young age for this. But it's not about the money. It's not about fame or fortune. If you're getting into it for that, you're getting into it for the wrong reasons. I've been down the road of, at a young age, like I said, I did it through high school, got a scholarship, went on to college, got a BA in liberal arts, did the whole Mad Men thing, right? I went into advertising agencies, did the whole suit and tie bit, did big marketing for big nationwide companies, did TV commercials, radio, won chunks of glass that went up on shelves for campaigns, the whole 9 yards. But I started having kids, and the whole starving artist mentality kicked in. So I kind of withdrew from the industry, went into construction industry, and stayed there, which I'm still there. But that yearn for creative was always there, as a lot of you have. And there's a way to kind of harness that and do good things with it. And that's what we do for NSC. Excuse me. But the story I want to start off with was a story back when I was in that, early 20s in big business. And I worked for a telecom company called US Unwired, but that went national, did stocks, married up with Sprint PCS. I did a lot of marketing for Sprint PCS. And we had one of those Mad Men, big budget advertising firms. I was the in-house marketing manager. We had the outsource management team. And we wanted to be the first people to actually launch a prepaid cellular phone, which you have them all over today, but we were actually the first ever to launch it in the nation and the first to do a mobile showroom. So I got a chance at a really young age to get wired into that. Did casinos, did telecoms, did banks, hospitals, you name it. I got a chance to work with Merv Griffin, which was a phenomenal experience for a kid my age. But on the US Unwired thing, on the prepaid phone, they want to just launch it and call it prepaid phone. How sexy is that, right? It's nothing. It's prepaid phone. And I backed up and told my boss, who was the VP of marketing, I said, man, it needs an identity. It needs something that people can talk about and hold on to and identify with, right? And he said, well, I don't know, kind of what explain more. I said, okay, think of Sony. Sony doesn't just launch a radio. They call it something. The Typhoon at the time was the name they coined. I said, Coke comes out with an identity, Coke Zero or whatever. They brand it something. They give it its own identity. That's what branding's about. Well, he calls the multi-million-dollar ad agency and says, hey, my guy here says you guys are stupid and we need to go ahead and brand this thing. I'm 22 years old, right? Fresh out of college. Green as grass, green as this shirt. And just had that perspective. And I told them in a boardroom, they're all sitting around. I've got people that are old enough to be my grandfather and father, and they're all sitting around twiddling their thumbs trying to figure out how to brand this thing. I said, well, do you guys know the price of milk? And they said, no. I said, what about bread? When's the last time you paid your own electric bill? These are all multimillionaires sitting around the room. Here's this college kid, living off, ramen noodles and cheese. I said, well, you don't understand what a prepaid person is, and that's part of branding. You have to understand who your customer is. And I said, your customer is me, the cash rich, credit poor kid right now that can't pay for $800 deposit on the phone at the time, who needs something, but has money. And so we got to kicking it around, and that's where we started to develop and do a lot of market research. Market research is also key to branding. You have to know your audience. You can't just, there's two approaches. You can shotgun blast out what you want to do, who you want to be, what your identity is for either yourself or a product, or you can do a sniper approach and find that key group that you're a part of. And so you saw the inked marketing logo flash across the screen for a second. That's the marketing side of NSC, is inked marketing. I pulled that out from underneath NSC because people were going, well, how does a TV station do marketing? Which they do. A lot of them have in-house agencies, but to kind of keep that confusion, I pulled inked off to the side. And inked focuses on branding specifically for the comic book industry. And we have that fine-tuned approach and can get right there in our target audience, which is us, right? All of us that go buy books, go to Comic-Cons, go to events, all that sort of thing. And those of us who need help with Kickstarters. We're in the process of right now, Rob and myself are helping Monty Michael Moore get his Kickstarter up and running. We kicked it off here last Saturday. It's doing gangbusters. There's a lot of great people involved in it. And it's just part of what we do. Now, to back up, again, to do the proper branding, you have to do a little bit of soul searching. You have to figure out exactly what you want to do. And we'll use the inked marketing logo as an example. There's a lot of play on words with that, and a lot of play on words with the NSC logo behind me. We'll get to that in a second. But on the inked marketing logo, which is up right now, it plays off of inking a comic, getting a tattoo, inking a deal. And you have to be multi-armed and multifaceted to be able to get yourself in all the places you need to be in a Kickstarter environment, right? Those of us who have done it and have done a few of them know right off the bat, you have to be in several places at once and pull everything together. So that's kind of where the inked marketing logo kind of got its background from. It really kind of embedded itself in my head a while back when I showed Rob a picture and Monty as well. The hanger you always see up in changing rooms and doctor's offices and all that kind of stuff, it's a double hooked and it's got two screws put in it. Well, that always kind of jokingly looked to be like the drunk fighting octopus to me. And that always kind of, I guess, subliminally was stuck in my head. And that's kind of, again, where some of this comes from. Now, to go back to on this shoulder, I always got to figure out where I'm at. Over this shoulder is the NSC Live TV logo. And that logo has been around for a couple years now. And there's another play on words. Since it is a virtual TV station, there's no signal, right? So that's kind of where the play on words comes in. And that's why I go ahead and do the no signal bars across the TV, as if it kind of went off the air, didn't have a signal. The remote that's up on the screen now has to do with the suggestion of being able to flip channels. And that's exactly what you can do on NSC. You flip from channel to channel. Monty's got a channel in there. Rob's got a channel in there. And excuse me, you can, and I don't have coronas, but I do have a lot of scratchy throat from sinuses. But I don't really try to joke about it because I have 3 friends that do have it, and it's a very scary time right now. So I don't want to joke about that at all. But the channel, the clicker, as we all call it, is to suggest you can click through channels. That's right out of the gate. That's right on the home page. That's right to suggest that, hey, there's something a little bit different about this. And it kind of goes into the tagline right off the bat. You're a click away from getting into a network that deals with comics, comic book creators, artists, interviews, all these different things are within the site. And guess what? You're just a click away, which gets people in the habit of learning, oh, well, if I click, I can move on to the next thing. The site has grown over the last couple of years. We're going to kind of pause with it just for a little bit as I take this move, as I'm moving from Colorado to Washington for my job. And yes, I do have a day gig like a lot of us creators do have. And that's kind of where things have left off at this point. But on the branding side, make yourself a list. Really, like I said, do some soul searching and find out what you want to be in the market. You have to imagine what you want to be in the market before you can get there. You can't just kind of jump into the market and look around and say, okay, I'm here. This is my name. This is who I am. This is what I do. Because you're not going to have any kind of direction at that point. You're going to pull out there in a NASCAR race in a Pinto, and you're not going to be able to keep up with everybody else. You have to really, like I said, make you that list of, okay, who am I? And really, really dig deep, as Rob says, really dig deep on who that is. What can I offer as a company, or what can I offer as a product that nobody else has? And there's Monty's Local Hero, which is an amazing idea that he came up with at the San Diego Comic-Con about 2 different universes. And like I said, he really dove into, and you need to really go check out the Kickstarter to find out the behind-the-scenes story. I don't want to give too much away, but he saw the opportunity for 2 different universes to come together, which was the cosplay universe, walking down the street, and a woman who had some mental things going on. And what if those 2 universes collided? He put a lot of thought into what that character should be. And that's the same thing you need to do with branding. Put a lot of thought into what you want to represent in the market. And what market is that? Are you going to market to cosplayers? Are you going to market to creators? Are you going to market to artists? Are you going to market to writers? You market differently to each of these groups. Are you going to market to individuals out there buying products? And if you do, how are you going to reach them? Am I going to do TV? Am I going to do radio? Am I going to do podcast? Am I going to do a mix? Am I going to hire an agency like, Inked to help me find my way, to kind of give me a road path, on which road to take? And that's what we did for the Kickstarter. I sat down with Monty, and Rob and I kicked a few things around, and we sat and said, okay, here's the path that you need to take. And he's one of the greatest customers or clients and friends you can have in that regard, because he listens. He listens to everything you tell him, and then he makes decisions from there. That's what you also have to be able to. You have to be able to be objective about what you are, who you are, what you're doing in the market, and listen to those who have experience in it. If I want to go find out something about my roof, I'm going to go ask a roofer, right? I'm going to go ask somebody who swung a hammer for X number of years and figure out what's going on. Kind of like, like I'm saying, I have, good Lord, if you look back at it now, 30 years as a freelance artist, and 20 plus years of that was spent in marketing and really fine-tuned to big budget marketing. I think our budget back in 90, 96, 97 for Sprint, what I had to control of was about $11 million. I was a kid in a candy store, right? I could learn with money and learn how to do advertising, and I wasn't going to fall on my face because I could do trial and error, because there's plenty of money to try stuff with. So I learned back then. I did the trial and errors. I figured out the right recipes, I call it. There's a recipe to branding and a recipe to marketing, and they do overlap, but they are 2 different sides of the same coin. So I got a chance to do all that. So I took all that energy and all that knowledge and all that stored up from that and applied it to our comic book industry. So we're able to have successes like with Local Hero and with the Kickstarter that was done for Stephen Butler. We're able to help give back and do that. So that's part of what we do for Inked. Again, the NSC Live stuff is branded completely differently. That is the TV station where you can come on and sell your products, sell your services. We talk about writers. We talk about the indie market. We just did a story on Scout, which is a big force in the indie market. And I got a chance to interview a lot of people, got a chance to talk with several artists in the market that are both Marvel, DC, and indie. And if you since you have the website pulled up, there you go. NSC now is the area where you go to actually pick what day of the week you want to see what's on. So, Rob, if you want to click any of those days of the week, Monday through Sunday, just pick a day. And there you go. And if you scroll up, that gives you the time zones, because I always got to figure out what time zone I'm in, right? So, because I'm always talking nationwide and globally at some point, different points. But that kind of gives you a rundown of some of the shows that are on and the times they're on. It's kind of like a TV guide setup. It gives you a little bit about the show, tells you what time's on there and what time they're coming on. And you can click it and it goes right to the show. So that whole setup's the same Monday through Sunday. As you click through there, it has all the different shows that come on a regular basis. Now we do pop-up shows a lot of time, and there's the furthermore. It goes right to the site, goes right to everything. When the lives are on, the lives pop right up. So it's basically a simulcast. So if you want to think about it this way, NSC Live is somewhat the food truck for the restaurant. We're out there, the ones driving around, kind of like the Blues Brothers, right? We're the ones with the big speaker on the top of the car with the microphone shouting out, hey, what's going on? We're the ones getting attention. And as Rob just got pulled up, there is several of the channels that are on there, and they're all grouped. All the comic book channels are together. The toy channels are together. And there's the index as well. The index has all the groupings that we just talked about. There's an artist alley. There's a writer's row. There's a group section. There's a charity section. We do a lot with charities. There's the indie alley. And that kind of showcases. There's Rob's show right there. And never mind the furthermore and IRC. All the shows that have to do with indies are right in there. So we help get exposure for those groups. That is what our job is, to get out there and get a front and be the ones, like I said, on the bullhorn, riding around, getting them notice. There's also the Wayne's Words up there, which kind of gives a synopsis and rundown of 10 of the best books that could be out there right now that you need to take a look at. The picture of the 7-Eleven kind of throws back to my childhood, because that's how I first got involved in comics. There was a 7-Eleven 2 blocks from my house. And yes, indie comics were the first comics I picked up. If you know anything about the Elementals or Justice Machine or Comico, that's where I got started. I picked up a Comico book, which I still have to this day, and it's over there in the comic pile. I've got several long boxes against the other wall. And when I got older, I bought the entire set. I have the entire set of Justice Machine. I always end up starting off with number 2 for some reason. I never have figured that out, but I always start off in the number 2 book and have to back up and go to the number 1. I did that with Wolverine when it first came out. I've done that with Justice, on and on and on. I've done that with several books. There's a book, again, we got to figure out where I'm at, right above me, right there. These 3 books behind me are very much a part of how NSC came about. The middle one is when Hulk became the Professor Hulk. That's Hulk 377, I believe the number is. That's signed by Peter David. So is beside it the Spider-Man 2099. I was 17 years old in my local comic shop, and those books are very dear to me. They're 30 years old. They are near mint. They're in Mylar with backs. That's what helped inspire me. Again, talking with Stephen Butler and talking with Peter David. I still talk to Stephen Butler to this day. So there's a little bit about how NSC came about, a little bit about branding. We can dive into more. I'm sure Rob's got some questions he wants to ask about, maybe a couple branding questions. And we can kind of go from there. But there's kind of a quick overview of, you have to figure out where you're going. You have to figure out what you are as a group, a company, and where your place is in the market. That's key to any successful branding campaign.
And I've loved not most, but all of what you said. But most importantly, the one thing I think that you said without actually completely saying it out loud, but I completely agree with, is that you have to evolve or die in business.
Yes.
And you really said it, like, when you have a room full of millionaires, they're the wrong people to give advice to a working class group that is being marketed towards. And I think a lot of time comic book creators are trying way too hard to act like they're Marvel and DC. They literally try to do things. Can you talk about the monkey see, monkey do aspect and the danger of it?
Oh yeah. Emulation is only flattering for comedians. You have to watch that trap, because Marvel and DC have very, very fine-tuned plans. And if you don't follow, and this is not knocking them, it's just kind of talking about what they are, because I know people that have been independent creators that have tried to bust into that side of the house and didn't like the recipes they were given. Again, as I mentioned, recipes, and I'll get this out of the way too. I'm Cajun. Recipes are a big part of my life. My wife's been going to chef school, so there is recipes. There's ways to put things together, and that applies to both, cooking and to the comic industry and to branding. Excuse me, let me get a drink real quick.
And that's so, the recipe thing, I always love when you say that because it's so true. People don't understand. It just doesn't come together. You have to have a plan, and a recipe is a plan.
Right. If you wander outside the recipe, it doesn't taste that great. And not every recipe works for everybody. You have to kind of see how that, everybody's tastes are different. So you're going to have to adapt. That's what you said, adapt or die. That's a very true statement. I knew some creators back at the last job site I was at that were independents, successful independents, and wanted to breach into that Marvel universe, right? Well, Marvel took their story, chopped it up, rearranged it, redid some, moved things around and made it unrecognizable to them. And they're the creators. It's near and dear to their heart. It's a piece of them, right? They didn't like it. I know writers still currently at DC and currently at Marvel. I know artists at DC and at Marvel. And they are all, the ones that I know, are all still retain their freelance basis. So they can jump in and do the Marvel recipe thing. They can jump out. They can do the DC recipe thing. They can jump out and go do their own book. They have that opportunity as a freelancer, as a creator, to move around. They're not set in stone. And think about it, guys. We all know who Jim Lee is, right? He was up and coming in Marvel, and then he swapped over and started doing his own thing, right, as an independent, him and Todd and the whole gang and Rob. And then what happens? Now Jim's over running DC. So, cats and dogs are all getting together and there's harmony in the world, right? People move around and they change and they adapt. I'm sure the way he's running DC at this moment isn't the same way he was brought up through Marvel. He's adapted. He's changed.
That's absolutely true. And I do want to point out that everyone who's trying to emulate Marvel and DC, understand one of the biggest problems in Marvel and DC today, and this is just the truth, is they've painted themselves into a corner. They can barely make new characters because they now have this preset established idea of what they have to constantly do and what they constantly have to produce. So maybe as an indie creator and someone who's independent or an underground creator, or just a comic book creator, don't emulate things that have been done.
Right.
Make quality books. Worry about your story. Worry about your art. Don't try to be anyone but yourself. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know that's so important in marketing, because you don't see Adidas trying to put out Just Be It commercials and try to copy Nike.
Right. And that's what I said. You kind of have to do some soul searching and find out who you are as a company. And then you have to figure out again what your audience is and then how you're going to interject into that audience. It's kind of a 3-part thing. So again, figure out who you are, what your business is, if it's a business or if it's as a creator creating a book. Figure out what the soul of that book is, as Monty has. Figure out where in the market you want to be and then plot a path to get there. It's like throwing a dart. If you just close your eyes and throw a dart, it's going to end up sticking somewhere. You might not like where it sticks, but it's going to stick somewhere, right? Or are you the person that actually practices and figures out how to throw, what speed you need, what range you need, that kind of stuff? Are you going to go watch somebody else do it? Yeah, you're going to go figure out some tips and tricks. Are you going to make it your own style? You better. That's how you differentiate yourself. Toys R Us, prime example. Toys R Us did not evolve. They stuck with their marketing from when we all grew up as kids, and they died. A horrible, tragic, very visual death.
And even worse, they doubled down on that by buying FAO Schwarz, hiring their CEO, and trying to make themselves more like FAO Schwarz, trying to move away from what did work and instead go high end, forgetting that their major customer base were loyal but middle class.
Yep.
They couldn't spend a lot of money, and instead they upscaled it to the point. I remember going to Toys R Us. I'm sure you do too.
Mm-hmm. They missed the boat.
Affordable. It was actually affordable for the time, right?
It was. And I think where they missed the boat was they didn't capitalize on that. And I don't mean monetarily. I mean capitalize as far as the idea. They didn't say, hey, our customers that were kids at the time now have kids, and they're bringing their kids here. They didn't do like McDonald's. McDonald's captured that, and they showed generations of people going to McDonald's, right? They've capitalized on that. Toys R Us totally missed the boat on that idea. And like you said, they try to emulate somebody else. They try to be somebody who they were not. It's kind of funny because, and I'm not going to name names, but I know from being, around chefs in my wife's business and stuff, I know, excuse me, I know several chefs, and they all think they're different, but yet they're all alike. So also watch being careful with trying to be too different, because then you end up just looking like everybody else trying to be different. It was kind of like being in high school, right? There's always a set of kids that tried to be different, but yet always look the same. That's what you run into in this. Like you said, that you have to stand out, but you have to know what you're standing out like. What are you going to in high school dress as, right? Are you going to be the yuppie kid? Are you going to be the kid all dressed in black? Where are you going to find your way? And it's the same thing with this. You have to figure that out. You have to dress, so to speak, your image a certain way to get it out there. And if you don't do it, people will.
You have to understand. I remember a high school metaphor, and I think you'll understand this. And we saw goth. I'm so goth. I'm so goth. That was our generation. I don't conform, but every one of them looked the same.
Exactly.
In reverse, for me, I hung out with goth kids. I actually dug them, and I hung out with them, but I never had that look. I was always labeled as something different. But I remember very early in my life, to what Kevin was saying, this is an important message. When I was younger, I tried to be cool. And the worst thing you can do in life is be cool, because it's not genuine. So I tried to, for a short bit, dress like one of the more rap kids, you know what I mean? Like, tried to go with the trend with some of the stuff. And that's not who I am. Be yourself. That's all. There's only one you in the entirety of the universe. Believe it or not, you are special. I know snowflake gets thrown around, but guess what? It's true. There's only going to be one you. Only one person who experiences life the way you do. So embrace that. Be yourself, but be respectful. Listen to other people and learn how to package yourself, because believe it or not, as an independent creator, you are, or just a creator, forget the independent, just as a creator, you, like he said, Jim Lee is Jim Lee, no matter where you put him. It's not he's DC Jim Lee. He didn't change because he went to DC. It's not wrestling. He didn't join the NWO and change his character. He stayed Jim Lee. Remember that. No matter where you are in your career, you're always going to be you. Quick question for you, and then unfortunately we've run out of time, because we could talk about this all day. But as this will be part of the later panel, we only had 30 minutes to get this all in. But I do have to ask this one question. As a branding expert right now, we're, of course, during the period of C19, we have to talk about it because the branding right now is important during C19. What do you think about these companies now making masks and selling masks?
There's a lot kicking around about that. There was a group that got together where I work that, excuse me, that got together and sewed a bunch of masks together as individuals and gave them out to people where I work at, which was a great thing. Now, part of what you might be referring to is the 3M thing that's been kind of floating around the media. And it got into whether they do it for the U.S. or they do it for outside the U.S. And that's been a very interesting kind of debate. I know on the surface, and I'm not sure of all of the facts, but I know one of the things is we're all having a hard time getting masks, right? And part of that's supply and demand. That's the other whole side of this whole discussion. But on the supply and demand side, the demand was greater outside of the United States than in the United States. And it was interesting, like companies like 3M decided to fulfill orders, but the orders had nothing to do with location. So the orders were all bought by overseas other countries rather than in the U.S. So we had a shortage. Same thing with medicine. There's this medicine shortage right now because all that medicine was produced outside of the U.S. and now it's not coming in. I've faced that with some of the heart medicine that I take. So between the mask and the medicine and some other kind of unique, maybe political things going on, it's been withdrawn when there's not as many masks out there. Now there is companies. I do have to applaud the people with 3D printers in other places. And there's companies that I don't remember the names off the top of my head, but I have read about other companies that mask isn't their forte, so to speak, but they've stopped production of what their norm is and started to produce masks to help catch up. Now that I applaud.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm seeing masks as much as $17 right now.
Yeah, people are gorging. Toilet paper is high right now, if you notice.
But I mean, is that really a good look for a company? You think right now is now the time to try to price gouge or try to make collectible or, and that it's been said, and I kind of feel the same way as a consumer. I feel like you should have done something that was like a 10-pack and affordable.
Yeah, I agree. It should have been made. That's the stance we took from NSC, because people automatically approach me, right, when everything started going down, the local comic shops that come on 4 or 5 times a week said, "Hey, we need to come on probably every day now. How much more is that going to cost?" I said, "It's not. We have the staff to support it. You can come on as many times as you need to keep the doors open, because that's our job, is to help you keep the lights on and the doors open." And they were shocked by that because, like you said, they're used to everything else around them price gouging right now. I think I want to say it was close to $18 for a 6-pack of toilet paper right as it started coming back on the market. It's ridiculous. Price gouging is not a. I know 3M is going to take a hit from what their stance was and now what they've announced with marketing right now, and they're gonna see some market shift in that. People that are really paying attention. Other places that are price gouging, I think consumers are going to pull back. I think people are going to shop differently through all this because of, like you said, because of price gouging. Now's not the time for that. Now's the time to make it where people can access things and not like creators. Perfect example. Yourself and other creators are putting a lot of books online right now as PDFs for 99 cents. To keep that out there and to keep people, Mile High Comics, right? Largest comic book place ever in the nation, in the world. I mean, probably. I think pretty sure they are. What are they doing? They're doing boxed sets at a reduced price. They're not price gouging right now. Those kind of people are going to be a lot more in the hearts and minds of people in our business. Like I said, like yourself and Mile High, other than the people out there that are price gouging right now. I think that's a very excellent point.
And I do want to point out brand loyalty, like we've been talking about, super important right now, guys. That's what you should be working on. Right now should not be your time for profitability. Can you talk a little bit? Because I've heard you talk about this, and you just said it. Right now is not the time. Can you kind of stress the point of the importance of brand loyalty and what that will mean past this pandemic? Right.
And you're doing great with it. Like I said, you're offering things out there that to keep the readability up there. You're stretching and developing brand loyalty now. There's other groups that are doing it, but other groups have totally stopped shipping books, right? Other groups have stopped producing books. There's TV shows that have stopped production, and we understand why. But there's also other groups that are going out and around and rethinking how they do things. There's shows that are going on and still, like Good Morning America, right? They still have, but they're doing it all out of their living rooms. They didn't just stop production and shut down and walk away and say, you know what, we'll be back in 3 months. They kept that up there because they need that brand loyalty. They need that connection. And I think as consumers, the people that went above and beyond and still offer out a product or a service or even at a reasonable price, people will in the end bond better with those groups than the people that got out there right now. Like you said, are charging 17, 18, 20 bucks for a mask to get that quick buck. If you go out there to try to get that quick buck, whether it's now in this COVID crisis, or if you try to do it later, if you try to get out there and offer your book and throw it out there at a ridiculous price point, you're not going to build any kind of loyalty whatsoever. You can't jump in this for the quick buck. You have to build it, and you have to build that, as Rob said, that brand loyalty.
Yeah, and I can't stress this enough, guys. And this is also why I've teamed up with NSC, and I'm very happy to help Kevin in any way I can. Ethics matter. I do business, and I try to team up with people who are ethical, and Kevin is one of those people I feel is an ethical person, and that's why you guys have seen, and we'll be seeing NSC a lot more on our site. We'll be using them as part of it. This backdrop over here, I'm working on getting NSC put into our actual backdrop as one of our affiliates and someone that we are working with. And the reason that we're affiliating with people, again, with branding, is because this is about bringing together a industry. right now. And NSC is doing that. NSC is doing it in a scale. We do it differently. I cover stories. He covers the actual people and bringing them together, including comic book shops that do live auctions constantly, that bring people. You have a toy section, you have a charity section, and you even have a marketing department that can help out other creators. You kind of got your pulse on the necessity of the industry, and I want to be part of that, and I want to help promote that.
Well, I definitely appreciate your kind words, and we try to do our best. I mean, we're not perfect in the sense that we've had our share of screw ups like everybody else. There's learning curves to things, but we do always try to put our best foot forward and try to keep those relationships and keep them really whole. And you know, like I said, when this whole thing kicked off and went south as far as the pandemic went, we had people coming to us that needed to do more, and we stepped in. We're able to offer that. We're very happy to be able to offer that. We're working on some big things together as far as doing some stuff for kids coming up. I hope all that goes wonderfully. We're really happy to have, you know, you, Rob, on board. Again, I have the same kind of heartfelt compassion towards you. We love what you're doing over there, and we're happy we're a part of it and be able to help. We're helping each other.
Exactly. And we're going to rise past not just this, but even in the future, we're going to bring comics back into a brand new era. Someone had recently said that the modern age is over. So I don't know what the new age of comics is going to be called, but they're going to be awesome because of people like Kevin trying to figure out the finger pointing. This is the dyslexic's worst nightmare. It reverses everything. Oh my God, what is left? What is left? What is left? But no, I appreciate the time you spent with us today. I'm sorry you couldn't be part of the live panel because I think you would have had some great information, but we're definitely I'm going to send this to everyone who's on the panel tomorrow and make them watch it so we know what you've already said, so we can kind of go off of that. And we'll wind up trying to play it at the end of the video tomorrow during our live panel. So the show will actually end with this. If
I appreciate that.
If the tech gods allow it, which I think they should. All right. Thank you for tuning in, Kevin. You're awesome. And stay awesome, my friend.
Thank you. You as well, my friend. Take care.